Adrian, you're ready? Yes. Okay. We will bring the finance meeting to order for April 20th. Chair Treem is feeling a little under the weather, so she will not be here tonight. And we shall be joined by a couple members a little bit as we go along. So with that, Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, just so we let people know who is here?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Assemblymember Wall. Present. Assemblymember Smith.
Here.
Assemblymember Hughes Scandies is currently absent, but may be joining us shortly. Assemblymember Bryson.
Present.
Assemblymember Hale.
Here.
Assemblymember Gladishevsky.
Here.
Assemblymember Wachal Gadak is currently absent, but she may also be joining us later on in the meeting. Assemblymember Treem is also absent. Mayor Weldon.
Here. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Are there any changes to the minutes for April 13th, 2022? Seeing none, the minutes are approved. So that brings us right into agenda topics. So first we'll start with the docks and harbors budgets. We start with you, Mr. Yucatel.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Docks and Harbors is having an Operations Planning Committee meeting today up in 224. So we have members of the board in chambers today. We appreciate the opportunity to present our budget to you today. I was asked to start off first by just giving a little overview about Docks and Harbors, kind of the overview that that we're not really drilling down, but we have 36 FTEs assigned to Docks and Harbors, the two enterprises. That includes 18 year-round employees. This summer, we anticipate hiring or having employed 57 individuals in the community for the Docks and Harbors seasonal work. I will talk about this later, but our plant replacement value for Docks and Harbors is valued at $122 million. And the value of our property that you entrust to Docks and Harbors is in excess of $250 million. In the last decade, Docks and Harbors has completed over $170 million in capital improvement projects. And in the last 5 years, we've also celebrated many personnel accomplishments, including a statewide Alaska Municipal League Employee of the Year, the Alaska Association of Harbor Masters and Port Administrators Harbor Master of the Year, and the Juneau American Society of Civil Engineers Engineer of the Year. And without a doubt, of the 1.3 million passengers that came in 2019, or the anticipated upwards of 1.5 million passengers arriving in Juneau, without a doubt, every one of them will transit a Docks and Harbors managed facility, and that will support an estimated $250 million of spending in Juneau. As far as a summary of our past COVID years, Docks and Harbors is very appreciative of the Assembly's financial support for the UAS property purchase. That is still pending. UAS is working their bureaucratic angle to determine whether it's in their best interest to sell the property to us, but we're with Madam Mayor drafted a letter to President Pitney, and then we're hopeful that that will tip the scale in our favor, that UAS will be willing to sell that property to us. We're also very excited to move forward with the Statter Phase 3, the Uplands for hire bathrooms and parking lot, as well as some $3.5 million that the Assembly appropriated to Docks and Harbors for seawater improvements. COVID was hard on our enterprises. We will be drawing about $800,000 from our docks fund balance because of revenue losses. And we were able to meet, and we believe we'll meet this fiscal year's responsibility in the Harbors enterprise but primarily through an austerity program where we didn't take back all of our seasonal employees last year, and we cut back on maintenance projects that we would have liked to have accomplished. As I move forward with the presentation, you'll see that we're asking, we have new expenditure needs for personnel at our cruise ship enterprise. And that's primarily, if you can remember, pre-16B, we had, my staff would manage yellow fence to keep a buffer between the skin of the cruise ships and the seawalk. And that was primarily the, the security responsibility. With the expansion of the 16B new cruise ship docks, at one point I was hopeful that docks and harbors could get out of the security business. But we are regulated through the U.S. Coast Guard and their what's called a facility security plan. And the evolution, the Coast Guard is not a static organization, and they changed the regulations and how we manage our port call facility. And as I like to describe what was going on, we went from 2015 thereabouts, just managing yellow fence to post 16B in 2017, where our security folks were more like Walmart greeters, and they were just there to make sure people returned to their vessel safely and knew what dock they're at. There was new regulation changes that a couple of years later that required our security staff to act more like Costco greeters, where everybody that came down to the dock had to display a ship card or ship credential that they were needed to be on our docks. And as of last year, the Coast Guard has increased the security requirements, where now our staff is required to not only check that passenger has a reason to be on the dock, but also to compare it with a government issued ID. So we went from Walmart greeter to Costco greeter to now we're TSA folks. And that really is going to increase the number of staff that we need. Next. So this is our docks budget for FY23 and 24. And you can see, I mentioned we're $800,000 that we're gonna have to pull from our fund balance. And the bottom line, Adrian, if you can scroll on the 771,800. So that is what we will remove from our dock fund balance. And then at the end of this fiscal year, FY22, we think will be down. Our expenditures will exceed our revenues for this fiscal year, 27,900. But things are looking up in the next 2 fiscal years. We're expect our revenues to exceed our expenditures by 200 and 223,000 respectively. Primarily, the reason we'll be running in the black is due to increase in marine passenger fees, the 300,000 that we're anticipating the Assembly will approve. But that is really what pushes us into positive territory. And again, a lot of that 300,000 is really due to the increased security posture that we're now required under the non-funded mandate by the U.S. Coast Guard.
Okay, we have a question, so let's pause. Ms. Hale.
That was my question. The non-funded mandate was the answer to my question. So we have to come up with it. Thank you.
Thank you. That was an easy question for you. Any other questions while we're paused for a second? Seeing none, go ahead.
And you'll see that the end of period fund balance. So we are right now at the end of FY22, we'll be at 1.79 million, and then about 200 million, or I'm sorry, 2 million next year and 2.2 the following year. One thing that isn't reflected in this slide is the personnel services does not reflect an anticipated salary increases due to the collective bargaining agreement that is ongoing. New revenues.
So you could help, could I ask a quick question? Since we only have these 4 years, and I forgot to call and ask you this question, what normally fund balance do you normally run at about an average?
Yeah, Mayor, I do have a slide with the fund
Okay.
balance over the last 9 years later on. And as far as new revenues that will be coming in for the docks enterprise, we did raise the lightering fees from $600 to $1,700, and that was as a result of just the need to have to cover our costs for security. But that lightering fee hadn't been changed since about 2005. Next two slides. In the next slide. In the docks budget, you'll see that primarily 57% of all of our costs are personnel salary costs, and the rest are keeping the lights on and water and maintenance. And then the docks revenue, the charges for services are really the mortgage and the port maintenance fees that we collect. And then with the marine passenger fees being 29% of, that's a big piece of the pie that greater than it's been in the past couple of years. Next slide. And as far as our expenditures, as I mentioned, 57% salaries, but the next two are insurance and the full cost allocation. So the full cost allocation is a fee or cost that goes back into the general funds of CBJ. And then you can see that, I won't read them, but so the top 8 expenditures we have for the docks enterprise makes up 92% of the budget. So really, we have very little discretionary expenditures when it comes down to the budget of the docks enterprise. Next slide. And this, Madam Mayor, as you can see, watermark of about 4 million, a little bit more than 4 million for, that's the green mountains on the top for our fund balance. And the depletion of the fund balance from about 28 FY18, that would have been investments in the Peratrovich Plaza improvements, the small visitor kiosk, the security shelters. So those are just expenditures that we've had. Of note of this slide, if you look at the actual expenses, which is the dark blue line, you can, I didn't compare it with CPI over those 9 years, but you can see it's relatively flat. So we're pretty steady Eddie, both in the docks and the harbor enterprise with regards to expenditures.
1 second, just for the record, please note that Ms. Hughes Scandies has joined us.
Adrian, next slide, please. And this is our harbors enterprise budget. And again, I'll just kind of point out that I've highlighted the next page, but essentially the FY22 projected revenues for our harbors will be revenues over expenditures will be $283,000 in the black. So with that, we have a bond covenant that we have to meet. We have a $792,000 debt that we pay every year, and there's a bond covenant that requires basically, if you remove, basically have to have 120% of our revenues exceeding our expenditures is what it goes down to. We're expecting in FY23 to produce another 313,000 in the good. And you'll note that the FY23 and FY24 operational budget, they're basically the same, just adjusted for anticipated inflation. Our fund balance at the end of FY23, well, right now we're at 925,000. We expect at the end of this year and next year, 1.2 million. So we've got big plans for lots of recapitalization, and we need to continue to build our fund balance so we can meet the needs and demand of the community. You also note that we do have a debt reserve that we maintain, it's not expendable monies, but it is money that is attributable to the docks or the harbor's enterprise. This budget also does include $240,000 and for the new lease rent for the UAS property. Again, this is that area between Aurora and Harris Harbor. The lease expired last year. We've got an extension to this year. We're working on another extension while UAS and the University of Alaska Board of Regents decides on what's in their best interest with that property. But we are anticipating if we continue the leases would be $240,000 a year for the next 33 years. Or if we can purchase it, we will still need approximately, if Mr. Rogers is willing to provide an interdepartmental loan, we'll have about a $200,000 payback to CBJ for the next 5 years to pay off what we believe will be the remainder of the purchase price of the UA property. Another increase to our expenditures starting this year, the current year, is we did add a half an FTE for the harbor's enterprise for a nighttime security officer. It's been received very well by the harbor patrons. It has split with the docks enterprise, but that is a new increase. And our CPI adjustments go into effect 1 July for the new fiscal year. So that was a 4.9% increase for our small boat harbor moorage fees. And just take this opportunity to make sure the Assembly knows that Docks and Harbors were embarking on a rate study for our small boat harbors and our downtown cruise ship docks. And we hope to have a first draft of that sometime in May. We've solicited the services of HDR Inc. They're a large engineering company with a home office in Anchorage. And again, this the personnel services does not have any new salary increases as a result of the collective bargaining agreement. Next 2 slides. And for the harbor budget, again, this FY23 looks like FY24 for the most part. Personnel services are 40%, and our debt service is 16%, and repairs and commodities and all the things we want to improve on in our facilities is 44%, and 68% of our our revenues are basically moorage and launch ramp fees. The rentals are title and leases. State shared revenue of 7%. That is the raw fish tax that the state returns to CBJ. And permits would be some of the permits for the charter operators, say out at Statter Harbor. Next slide. And much like the docks enterprise, our top 7 expenditures make up more than our lion's share of our budget. I won't go through each of them. Really, the discretionary monies that are in that top 7 would be contractual services, and those contractual services include what we pay for porta potties and boat demolitions, term contracts that we have with either our electricians or term contract for appraisals. So it is that would be our most fluid expenditure when you look at all of the line items of our budget. Next slide. And again, similar to the docks enterprise, you'll see that the orange line is our fund balance. And you'll see that, again, a high water mark of about $4 million back in 2015. And then from 2016 to 2019, there were fund balance reductions for Aurora Phase 2 project and Statter Phase 2, which was the launch ramp. So those are how we've invested our fund balance, and we're in the process again of rebuilding our fund balance again so we can do good things for the community.
Mr. You can tell we have a question, Ms. Glaszewski.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So yeah, I was trying to figure out that dip there because your revenue is the green line and it's always above the blue line. That's your expense. So something's not on expense to cause the fund balance to go down. And you just said it was those two projects, but they're not on here. So I don't understand what's on expense then.
Yeah, so the fund balance is really a separate lockbox, I'll say, that really doesn't, the other four lines are just the budget, projected budget, actual budget for expenditures and revenue. And then the fund balance is just is separate, but I think it's important to show it on there how we've, every year when we can add to this lockbox, we'll build up the fund balance, and then we'll expend it on capital improvement projects. So the lines, the four lines of the operational budget aren't necessarily related to what I'll call the lockbox of the CIP or the
So your,
fund balance.
some of your expenses aren't on here then, because you spent something that's not reflected on your, you just told me what it was, but it's odd that it's not on here. They're projects. You spent this money, but you can't tell what, from this chart, what that was.
Right.
You
So
have to know you, and you would say, oh, it's for these two projects.
yeah, so typically for our CIP projects, we create CIP projects that are standalone from the actual budget. So we're not even, we could have a CIP list.
Okay, that's all. You explained it. I'm good. I just didn't, the numbers didn't add, so I was trying to figure out.
Yeah. Anything further while we pause? Seeing none, go ahead.
Thank you. Next slide, Adrian. So these are the interdepartmental fees that we've been tracking over the last 9 years or so. You can see that Docks and Harbors, since 2014, we tripled the amount of money that goes back into other CBJ departments. So in here, the gray is interdepartmental. So that's the fees that goes back in the general fund. And then we have the other fees that Docks and Harbors returns or pays for services. But it is, 3 times what we were paying just in 2014. Next slide. The last slide. So part of those new expenditures, the current fiscal year, our property insurance for the Docks and Harbors enterprises, both of them, is $137,600. Next year, we'll be paying a 210% increase to 400, nearly $500,000. Our property claims since 2016 have been only 8,100 total, although we do have some damage at Statter Harbor that's pending, and we've got a contract with a contractor to go make those repairs before the season starts. But those are, it's.
Mr. Ugotel, pause for one. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Ugotel, I'm sure you have evaluated it just because it's such a significant increase, but I mean, is there a better way to ensure, I don't know if we can, but can we, has you or the board looked at a different way of insuring for property?
Yeah, through the mayor, Mr. Smith, it's probably a question for risk manager and finance, but it's,
They're all.
those are large increases that it's hard for Docks and Harbors just to pass that on to our user groups. So it's, insurance is important, but it's really taking a toll on what we would like to do as a organization and to build our fund balance.
Mr. Rogers has something to say on that.
Thank you, Mayor Weldon. I think that we're going to hear from the enterprises both today and over the next several weeks. And this conversation about insurance, I think, is going to be a repeated item as it was for the school district. Mr. Yucatel is correct that we did fully double property insurance rates this year. But it's worth decoupling that from what's really happening in the insurance fund, right? So what's happening in the risk fund is quite a bit more complicated. Our insurance rates have gone up precipitously. But the other thing that happened last July was that our deductible went from $100,000 per incident to $500,000 per incident. And that really changes the way that medium-sized events affect the balance of the risk fund. And we came into that big increase in rates and big increase in deductible with a significantly negative fund balance for the property component in the risk fund. So it's this series of this, particularly bad combination of events where we had many large claims, premiums are rising, and the deductible increased that has put the fund balance in a negative position. And so the rate increase that the school district and the enterprises are seeing, we've enacted to reflect not only the increase in the premium and the deductible and the expected experience, but also to get us out of a multi-million-dollar negative fund balance for property. So it is a bad situation. There's no way to sugarcoat it. I warned Mr. Yucatel and the other enterprise managers many months ago that this was coming down the pipe. It's frustrating. It's unfortunate. I don't think we're alone in dealing with insurance costs. I mean, Mr. Yucatel and I just worked with the risk manager to ask our insurance broker the basic question, could Docks and Harbors maybe do better going out on its own? And their answer was probably not. Dock infrastructure is just hard to insure. It's expensive. I don't know. It's not an ideal circumstance. All I can say is if there was anything we could do to make it cheaper for anybody, we would do it. And there just isn't. So I know it's not a great answer, but.
Anything further? Any other questions so far? All right, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor. And then so the only last thing I'll point out is the way that risk share of the premiums is basically based on the value of the property that we have. And so we have, according to the risk manager, we have $122 million in inventory. And so that's about 12% of the total CBJ portfolio. And so that's how it ends up. But interesting enough, and I was surprised when asking the question that, so Docks and Harbors, our value of assets is only the school district, and the Public Works wastewater has more valuable assets than Docks and Harbors. So that really surprised me, but that's how we ended up. That's how the risk manager explained that our share of the cost. Next slide, which is the end, and I'd be willing to answer any questions. The Docks and Harbors board looks forward to the next opportunity for a joint meeting in the near future. With that, I'll answer any questions or any questions for any of the board members that are in.
Any questions for Mr. Yucatel or any of the board members? Mr. Smith?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I think we'll come to it later, but just to confirm, so the Coast Guard requires that that increased security presence or whatever, and then the current plan as proposed is to pay for that with with passenger fees. Is that correct?
To the mayor, yes, Mr. Smith. So as we get, we'll get our footing again with the return of cruising, and so we'll have a more stable background. But yes, the other thing that's out there that industry is testing is what's called a medallion, where instead of checking a ship credential card and a passport, that some of the cruise lines are looking at a medallion that passes by, that's a smart medallion, and there's facial recognition. So there's an opportunity in the coming years, if that technology is embraced, that we can go back to a one-person operation. But if you think of the airport and, on a busy, maybe you have 600 people trying to get through the airport in a 90-minute time, and now we've got 4,500 people that typically will come back in a couple hours. You can just imagine the additional people that you need. And, just think of the folks trying to get those people on board and trying to compare those two credentials.
Ms. Hill?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks for being here, Mr. Yucatil, and thank you to the Docks and Harbor Board members as well. The changes that are being made to security, are they going to impact people's ability to walk on the docks? Or is that still going to be okay? Not on 16B, but the big docks.
Yeah. Mr. Yucatel.
Yeah, through the mayor, Michelle, that security person is really just that, I'll say, adult in the room has a presence in the small boat harbors primarily. And that's really where we've been having most of the complaints about uneasiness of late night visitors that shouldn't be in the small boat harbors. That was really the impetus. But yes, that person will also be.
I think she meant your 5 positions, your TSA type people.
Those are in addition. So that position.
No, but are they gonna interfere with people walking on the docks? Just like on a sunny day like today, I'm sure there were several people down there.
Is that going to be impacted?
No, not the seawalk. So the way that our facility security plan is written is the ramp and the floats are a restricted area. So they keep people that aren't passenger or crew from going down there. That's my staff's responsibility. It's not to keep people from walking on the seawalk.
Okay, and I think that was the questions.
That was it. Thank you.
Ms. Glaszewski.
Just quickly, so I make sure I understand. I thought there were 5 new positions for docks. And then are there new positions for harbors, security positions?
One half position.
A half, okay, so that's the harbors one, or the walk the harbors.
So it's
person.
one person.
Okay.
With the funding from the docks enterprise and the harbor enterprise. So that person will be stretched all year round and making rounds both in the port as well in the small boat harbors, as well as the launch. He'll have a different route. He'll go to Echo Cove one day.
Okay.
Maybe he'll go to
Just-
Port Douglas.
So it's 5.5 FTEs for docks and a half for harbors, and the half is the one person.
Correct.
So 5 for docks and 1 for harbors. Thank you.
Further questions? Seeing none, Ms. Glaszewski.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd move that we accept the docks and harbors budget.
Any objections? Seeing none, thank you very much, Mr. Yucatel, for your time, and Mr. Creswell and the rest of your staff and the board, of course. So it looks to me, Mr. Etheridge, that you might have some help patrolling in the evening. Thank you again.
Beautiful final slide. Infrastructure was beautiful.
Yes, with that, since it's only a little bit after 6, we'll carry on with our passenger fee plan review. I'm assuming that goes to you, Mr. Rogers.
Thank you, Mayor Weldon. I'm going to pass this pretty quickly here to Ms. Pierce, the new tourism manager. We have been in a process of trying to transition the responsibility for the annual passenger fee plan to Ms. Pierce. It is a collaborative effort. We work on these things together in terms of thinking about passenger projections and revenue and how we spend that revenue. But I think for the purpose of walking you through the memo on page 22 and 23, I will hand it to Ms. Pierce.
Thank you for that, Ms. Pierce. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You can take your mask off to talk. We'll be able to hear you better.
That
You're not
helps me
sitting by
speak more
anybody.
clearly. Yes. So I believe the memo is fairly self-explanatory, but I'll walk you through the capital projects on the second page of the memo. So Adrian, if you could scroll, there we go. Perfect. So the municipal services first or second line item, the first line item is the debt service on the 16B docks. Municipal services are based on the cost allocation that we agreed to in the settlement agreement with CLIA, and then also includes some of the funding requests that Mr. Yucatel just discussed, the TSA level screening. And then other departmental expenses. The third party services, the Travel Juno funding for the crossing guard and visitor services are kind of in line with previous years. The crossing guard program is a pass-through contract to Gold Belt. The visitor services program is administered by Travel Juno. Tourism best management practices is also now administered by Travel Juno. And the future path that we've been looking at is to hire a contractor to do the administrative end of that program through Travel Juno. I believe they have a former employee who's on board to do that this year. Downtown Business Association also provides downtown ambassadors and visitor information. And then the AJ Dock Access Control Security and Franklin Dock Access Control Security. This is the same funding that Mr. Yucatel was talking about with the heightened security requirements. We have historically and traditionally funded services at the private docks that we would fund for city docks that are kind of universal visitor services like security and restroom maintenance. And so that's in line with past practice, and we collect passenger fees at those docks, and they are required to follow the same security program that Docks and Harbors is required to follow. And restroom maintenance is also pretty well in line with what we've done in the past. As far as CBJ Capital Investments, the circulator plan was a recommendation from the Juneau Commission on Sustainability. And this concept of a circulator bus has been in our planning documents forever. In my experience with the planning department, we've probably pulled like 10 plans that say that we should have a circulator. And it's been much discussed in many different forms. We don't have anything that tells us what a circulator would be, how much it would cost, how it would operate, whether it makes sense. Like we've never done a feasibility study on a circulator. We've just consistently recommended a circulator. And there's a number of different models and concepts out there. It could be a true visitor downtown circulator. It could be a visitor glacier circulator, or it could be a combination of both. We don't know without getting some expert input on that.
Ms. Hill.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Are you also looking at parking circulators so that people can park out of the downtown core and then hop on in?
Through the mayor, that's certainly a possibility. The idea is to hire a transportation planning company with expertise in this field. I'm pulled a bunch of circulator studies and plans with the help of our lovely procurement staff, and I have a long plane ride to read them on in a couple days. So I'm kind of starting work on the RFP now, but the idea is that they would evaluate all potential opportunities and models and kind of come up with the mix that actually works for Juneau, or tell us it doesn't work at all. But without that level of effort, I don't know how we move forward with funding any sort of circulator program, because there have been too many ideas floated and no real feasibility study done.
All right, you have some questions. So Ms. Gladysevsky, Ms. Hughes Candies, and then Mr. Bryce.
Just about the circulator. I mean, it has been talked about forever. And so you sure you found them all? Because I swear we've written things on it. I don't know where they are or anything, but it's just been on and on and on. I'm sure you've looked, but I'm kind of surprised that there really is nothing other than we've been talking about it for 20 years.
Ms. Pierce.
Thank you, through the mayor. We certainly have in the blueprint downtown planning process. Ms. Wool is familiar with the incredibly detailed deep dive that Mr. Felstead did into the transportation plans of the past. And we did some sort of circulator feasibility analysis in 1984, but clearly that's no longer relevant. We have about 1.25 million more visitors than we did back then. So
Been a transportation planner for a while too, that did something. I don't know what it is.
we have a lot of transportation plans, and they all say that a circulator is a good idea.
But they don't define what that is. Ms. Hughes Candies, and then Mr. Bryce.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ms. Pierce, my question was actually jumping back up to the third-party visitor services.
Sure.
As you mentioned, the funds to private docks are in keeping with private or past practices, but me griping about it for the last couple of years is also in keeping with that practice. So I figured I should honor the tradition. I just was wondering if you could answer, if you don't have it off the top of your head, that's fine, but how the fees at private docks compared to the city fee.
Ms. Pierce.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's the same fee. Are you, sorry, clarifying question. Are you talking about berthing
Yeah,
fees or?
I could phrase that
Yeah,
differently. So obviously the marine passenger fee is the
Yeah.
same across all the docks, but the docks and harbors left
Berthing
now. So the berthing fee, I guess, is the correct way to say it.
so through the mayor, that is an excellent question that will hopefully be answered by Mr. Yucatel's rate study. We don't actually know what the private docks charge entirely. We have some, we've heard numbers. And the intent of the rate study that Docks and Harbors is currently embarking on is to determine what the dockage berthing fees are kind of across the region, including elsewhere in Juneau, and come up with a reasonable rate for our dockage fees. And, you know, to expand on that and editorialize just a tiny bit, in a perfect world, in my mind, all docks would cost the same, and it would be incredibly easy to move ships around, and it would be incredibly easy to move money around, because we wouldn't be operating in an unequal system.
That's helpful. So what I'm hearing you say is right now we don't know, but we are setting out to know so we can set ours perhaps, or okay, thanks.
Through the mayor, we're working on it, and I sincerely hope we're having a very different conversation about this a year from now.
Mr. Bryce and then Ms. Gladysevsky.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Ms. Pierce, for coming in. This is very good presentation. My question is about bathrooms.
Mhm.
The restroom maintenance, I imagine that's the summer contract for keeping the facility clean. Has anyone looked into, is there a possibility of having, like the term, porta potties that are rentable? There's a lack of restrooms in the downtown corridor. once they exit past City Hall and apparently the Franklin dock, there's no more public restrooms until they get to the Capitol. And so that has been a problem for the local businesses and for tourists alike, that there's just not enough restroom facilities. So maybe not on this list, but in future years, I'm sure the tour companies would agree to pay for porta potties.
Excuse me, could we swap out Mr. Bryson's phone? Apparently the people on the internet can't hear Mr. Bryson. You could borrow Ms. Hughes Scandies while they do that.
Or they don't want to hear me, Madam Mayor. That's fine. It's, so I was only commenting on if we could maybe see about a line item of some rentable restrooms to increase the restroom facilities in the downtown corridor for our tourists. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. Ms. Gladszewski.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll jump on Ms. Hughes Scandi's comments. I feel the same way, actually, but first I have a technical question. AJ Doc asked for 282 and the thing says 200, and Franklin asked for 140, yet this says 160. So I don't understand that. And when it's restroom maintenance and it's only $30,000, but now that is this something that was unanticipated? This security thing, and we're going to do it for 1 year or something, which seems not so bad as adding, taking off passenger fees that can be used for other things for something that as a dock owner, you have to charge them enough money to run your dock. And running your dock includes security on your dock and whatever else it includes. So is this a 1 year thing or what's the idea there?
Ms. Pierce.
Through the mayor, I hope so. And I'll go back to the comment that I left Ms. Hughes Scandies with, that I hope we're having a very different conversation about this a year from now. I think that through evaluating dockage rates, we can also evaluate our relationships with the private docks, especially vis-a-vis these security costs if they persist. And to answer the technical questions, Franklin Dock had another small $10,000 request that I can't remember what it was off the top of my head right now, that we rolled into the security fee cost. And AJ Dock frankly just asked for way too much money. And we told them that they do get bigger ships and they do get a few more ships. And we told them that we would take it down to 200,000, but we wouldn't pay them 280,000 when Franklin Dock and Docks and Cbj Docks and Harbors had budgets that were quite similar to one another, and AJ Dock was asking for almost twice as much money.
Okay, can I just follow up? So the part about, is this an unanticipated thing that somehow they didn't know this year and they didn't budget for it or something like that?
Through the mayor, that's correct.
Okay, so next year they'll plan it for their fees and charge proper amount of money, I'm hoping.
We will make sure they're aware that they need to plan it.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ms. Pierce, maybe just at some point or just in an email or something, could you send the breakout of the Cbj Municipal Services, if you don't mind?
Absolutely.
Or Ms. Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is about something that's not on the list. Are we still, I wasn't sure.
We are still in the
Process-wise, we're
halfway
still-
through the capital.
Okay, I'm
investment.
gonna hold my question then.
All right. Seeing then, if Ms. Pierce, if you want to carry on.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So moving down, the real-time weather monitoring stations are a replacement of existing aging infrastructure. Dock electrification funding is for a new transformer. The existing transformer at the Franklin Dock can only allows us to plug in one ship at a time. should we, and we do want to electrify another dock, we need a transformer that allows us to plug 2 ships in at once. It also, or multiple ships in at once. And it also will decrease the connection time, which is currently a bit of an issue. It takes a while to get a ship plugged in and using power. So that's 1.6 million of this request. The other piece of it is for design documents for dock electrification. As the Assembly knows, we've applied for a number of grants for dock electrification. The shovel-ready projects are certainly more competitive, and whether we choose to pursue additional grant funding or we choose to fund a dock electrification project ourselves through bonding or through passenger fees, we need design. So, and that's an important first step. So that's the remainder of the funding above and beyond that 1.6. Then moving to Seawalk expansion, we have restarted the conversation on the south end of the Seawalk between AJ and Franklin. Our next step is to do some geotechnical work down there with the possibility of the subport coming online. We have possibly the opportunity to go the other direction with the Seawalk. So this $1 million is just for design and engineering work, kind of as needed as those projects move forward. And then once we have a project, we'll likely come back for more passenger fee funds next year. But this will get us started and at least to where we need to go with, I believe there's some existing money in the CIP budget as well. And then the refillable water bottle stations was a request by JCOS. It was also something that a couple of local merchants had floated forward. Opportunity to reduce plastic wastes downtown, and we would be modifying the existing drinking fountains to create refillable water bottle stations. The final Marine Park improvements planning and design. Marine Park is clearly a park that is aging and could use to be reimagined. In the blueprint planning process, we talk about it being kind of our waterfront town square with a hopeful Seawalk connection there. It could just be a much better space. The infrastructures there is aging, and Parks and Rec is wanting to embark on a master planning process to kind of start that project and start the public process around Marine Park design. And so with that, one other thing to add, we budgeted for 1 million passengers this year. That may be low, that may be right on, we don't really know. There were a couple of requests that were approved in, I believe, FY21 that never got funded because we never had ships. Once involves the wastewater treatment plant, and one is some infrastructure funding at the Franklin dock. So should we receive more passengers than anticipated this year, we may look into funding those projects. And additionally, we carried forward a $3.5 million negative fund balance into the passenger fees this year from those 2 non-existent and then barely there seasons. So we do need to account for that in the budget as well.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is about, there was a request, I think, from you for a visitor or a survey. I couldn't remember, was that was the task force recommendations to do multiple years, and am I reading this right, that that's not included, and why?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's rolled into the Cbj Municipal Services, which I'll distribute. And yes, the task force recommendation was to do multiple surveys year over year. I'm actually very interested to see what this year looks like compared to last year. And if the public perception, which hasn't shifted since about 1998, shifts with a full season after a few years off. And we're hoping to do one this year and then reevaluate and see if it's an annual thing or an every couple of years thing. But we do anticipate doing surveys going forward. I think it's a really valuable tool to gauge public perception on tourism.
Anything further? Oh.
Just quick,
Ms. Gladysevsky,
just-
then Ms. Wall again.
just quickly, I forgot about the things we'd funded prior, but they had $0. So why not start with that list? None of those things needs to still be done. Because this is a whole new list. Well, not a whole new list, because it's some of it's the same stuff like crossing guards and et cetera.
Who's tackling that one?
list was.
Ms. Pierce.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. These were the two things that kind of popped up as like, hey, we still need money. A lot of the things are incorporated into this list. I know there was Seawalk money on there before. And the municipal services. So I'm sure there were a few things that we had anticipated funding that maybe didn't get funded, or maybe we realized we didn't need it, but this was the list that came forward this year, and the CBJ departments certainly looked back, at least Parks and Rec and Docks and Harbors certainly looked back at their needs from the last several years. Wastewater kind of popped up at the last minute after we'd already gone public with the memo and said, hey, remember us? And we'd already issued the proposal, so we added it to the.
Right, Ms. Wall.
Madam Mayor, the proposal from SHI for totem carving, would that be an allowable expense under the current agreement?
Good question. Ms. Pierce.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We asked CLIA that question directly, and they said that they would prefer that the lines provide individual donations to SHI rather than funding through marine passenger fees. And I understand that SHI is in discussions with several lines about that funding.
Perfect. Going once, going twice.
Madam Mayor.
So Mr. Rogers.
Just apologize for the interruption, but just make one other little note. We, per Assemblymember Smith's request, Ms. Pierce can provide the breakdown of the CBJ municipal services. But the one thing I will point out is that the one thing that's included there that hasn't been in previous years is all of the funding for Ms. Pierce and the Office of the Tourism Manager is being fully paid for with passenger fees. So that's rolled up into that $3.6 million number. It's the reason it's a little bit higher than it has been in the past, is that the full cost of Ms. Pierce and all of her costs, and the tourism survey is one of those things that gets rolled up into her budget, but she now has a budget that's fully funded by passenger fees.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers, and worth every penny so far. Anyway, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Rogers, but this was just kind of informational for us at this point. We don't need to do anything with this, correct?
Mayor, well, you do not need to do anything with this. It's on your schedule to approve it on May 11th or May 18th.
All right, well, Ms. Treen probably would have known that, but I didn't know that. So.
Yes, it's on your schedule to approve on May 11th, although, Madam Mayor, there is nothing that would stop you from approving it today if there was a committee desire to do that.
What is the will of the body? Ms. Gladysevsky, do you want to make a motion there?
Sure, I'm ready. to-
Madam-
ev-
I would prefer to move it later. That's my preference until I see the municipal breakout and can make a decision then.
All right. We'll let Ms. Hughes Scandies have her way this time. Anyway, thank you, Ms. Pierce. Unless you have anything further, we appreciate your time. With that, let's take a break until quarter till, and we'll hear about hotel bed tax and travel general. We will bring the finance committee meeting back to order. Mr. Rogers, looks like we're talking about hotel bed tax funding.
Thank you, Mayor Weldon. So if you're on page 25 of your packet, you'll be in the right place. You can also find related information, similar information on page 67 of the budget book. This memo, I guess we'll start putting into the Finance Committee packets every year. We started talking about it this way because of the pandemic, but now we realize it just actually is helpful to talk about it in this way. Just a reminder that we charge a 9% hotel bed tax, applies to all stays less than 30 days, including short-term rentals. We forecast hotel bed tax next year to be a little over $2 million. That's not a big forecast because that's about the same forecast that we have for this fiscal year. Just over $2 million. That is a 9% tax. The tax used to be 7%. The public voted to change it to 9%, to add 2% in January 2020 to finance improvements to Centennial Hall. That has happened. So we now use that money to pay for that debt. 4% of the 9% has always been earmarked for tourism promotion, and 3% of the 9% has been earmarked for Centennial Hall operations. You can just see in this memo how that math works out in terms of where the money goes for Centennial Hall operations, because some of it stays in CBJ and some of it is paid to the Juneau Arts and Humanities Council for their work managing the facility. And then you can see that I work closely with Ms. Perry as we get up to the budget preparation. So Travel Juneau's request is in line with the 4% status quo, or the 4% expenditure of the 9% forecast. So their request is for 928.9, and that is exactly what is available according to the forecast. So I will make one little note, which is that we will have some hotel tax fund balance come the end of this year because I so radically under forecast hotel bed taxes this year. And I only make a note of it because it'll give us some cushion in future years if we have some underperformance that we don't expect, and we still should be able to issue the grants that we anticipate. So I think unless there are questions about this memo, it's just meant to kind of frame the conversation about Travel Juneau and answer any questions you might have about how hotel bed tax funds Centennial Hall also.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a question that's kind of unrelated to this, but directly related to it. Recently, the talk has been of the high number of VRBOs or the short-term rentals. What is the impact of short-term rentals on the hotel bed tax? What efforts are CBJ taking, or are we taking as CBJ to ensure that all these VRBOs are registered or paying the appropriate tax? Do we have a number of how many of those are registered for Juneau? And if you could just elaborate on that a little bit, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Bryson. So I don't want to get too far ahead of another discussion I think is going to happen at the assembly level. I think that the manager and the mayor and the deputy mayor are working to get a conversation lined up about short-term rentals at a COW in the coming months. So I think look for that in the coming attractions. We do get a significant amount of hotel bed tax from short-term rentals. I was just looking at some numbers just the other day. So in excess of 150,000 of that is short-term rentals, not hotels. Not a huge number, but it's significant in a $2 million forecast. Compliance is a separate question that's complicated, and we have about 170 registered short-term renting businesses, which is not the number of short-term rental units. So if you were to go on Airbnb today and search for all rentals available in Juneau in the coming year, you'd see close to 300 units. We have 170 registered businesses, but that is potentially correct because many of those businesses are operating more than one unit, and they only need one sales tax identification to report all of that. So, but at the same time, compliance is difficult. The only way that we could get to complete compliance with Airbnb folks is to manually walk through Airbnb every day and see who's listing their properties. I can tell you that today, the sales tax office simply doesn't have time to do that. There are a lot of third-party companies that would love for us to pay them to assist us with that. And we're looking at some of those things. And I would just put that on your list of things for us to talk about when we talk about short-term rentals, and the overall impact is tax compliance. I think it's reasonably good, but it's surely not perfect. And while she's here, I'll thank Ms. Perry. So Ms. Perry's been working hard to find accommodations for Ironman. It's a difficult time. And as people have contacted Ms. Perry for information about how to list their own house for a week or two as a short-term rental for Ironman, Ms. Perry has been exceptionally good at passing along the correct information about filing for sales tax and hotel bed tax. I'll admit it's a strange burden, right? I mean, we really want people to make housing available during Ironman. It's just going to be a difficult week. At the same time, renting your house out for Ironman means that you need to get a business license. You need to file with the sales tax office. It's not straightforward. I think people who would like to rent find it to be a burden. And it is. So complicated subject, a lot of different dimensions. I think more conversation to come.
Thank you. And it is scheduled for an upcoming cow. We're just not sure if it's the next one or the one after. Since you brought it up, Ironman, we were asked if someone is just planning on doing their house for Ironman, is there any way to get around doing a business license, or do we have to treat everybody equally and they have to get a business license?
Mayor Weldon, at this time, we have proceeded to follow the code strictly, which says that people offering rental accommodations need to have a business license and need to file with the sales tax office. There is a provision in the sales tax code, although not the hotel bed tax code, that would exempt incidental sales, casual and incidental sales. That doesn't apply to short-term rentals because they're principally governed by the hotel bed tax code, which doesn't have a similar exemption. So at this time, Madam Mayor, no, there is no exemption or provision.
All right, any further questions on the memo? I have one quick one then. So we show that the Centennial Hall operations is roughly 696,000, but we show that the expenditures are 639. What happens to the rest of that approximately 30,000? Does that just go into a fund for Centennial Hall, or what's happening there?
Mayor Weldon, that 57,600 will just stay in hotel fund balance. The assembly could appropriate it for any purpose at any time.
Thank you. Okay, going once, going twice. Thank you for the memo. All right, with that, we come up to travel general. Ms. Perry? Ms. Perry and Mr. Pierre, that's kind of an interesting team. There we go, perfect. All right. Who's ever starting, please start.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having us here. As you know, it's been a really tumultuous couple of years for the travel industry, especially here in Juneau. And I am happy to report that our partners are cautiously optimistic about this restart with the industry with this coming season. Our partner numbers are rebounding. And we are maintaining our commitment to represent even non-partners on our website with contact-only listings so that we are representing the entirety of the opportunities that Juneau has to offer in terms of excursions and other services to visitors when they become known to us. We are also seeing a restart of events like the travel fair that we had last Saturday. We estimate that we had about 500 or more attendees at that event. Our partners showed up to provide some locals discounts. We had some raffles and giveaways, and it was a tremendous day for them to talk to community members about what they had to offer. We will have our first ship in on next Monday, about 1:30, when the Bliss arrives at the AJ dock, and I would invite assembly members, if they are available, to come down and join us with a very modest welcome. We'll have some downtown walking maps, stickers, and so forth, just to say, welcome to Juneau, and, you know, kind of very, very low key, but we want those folks to be welcomed as our first guests of the season into town. Want to go over just a couple of marketing trends that we're seeing in the industry. Just this morning, Longwoods International issued a survey that showed that about 92% of their respondents have travel plans within the next 6 months. And they are actually more concerned about the expense of the travel and gas prices than they are about COVID. So I think this is really indicative of the pent-up demand to travel and how people are, you know, feeling much more comfortable traveling outside of their home locations, and they want outdoor locations. Our marketing has actually really aimed over the last 3 or so years at outdoor travel, and we are aiming at a younger market inside of that. We're aiming toward active groups that enjoy outdoor activities. They like to hike, they like to camp, and this is true of our convention sales as well. We're finding that many planners want remote locations off the beaten path. They're tired of going to Vegas, Chicago, Dallas for their meetings, and they want smaller locations, and they're looking at, in some cases, smaller and more frequent meetings. Our demographic is showing that our top market is in the 25 to 34 bracket. Those are the people who are calling in and are requesting information, and that is followed by the 35 to 44-year-old bracket. So that means that our marketing is hitting the right marks. That's who we were aiming for, and those are the people who are calling in for additional information. Our call-in inquiries are actually down a little bit, but our online inquiries through our website and other opportunities are up. And we're noticing also that the inquiries through mobile and through tablets are now outpacing inquiries through our through desktops. This is also indicative of the age demographic that we're aiming for. So all of that fits together pretty neatly. Again, to convention sales, we know that business travel is going to rebound a little more slowly than our leisure market will. And the push for, you know, slightly smaller meetings, again, in places that have great outdoors locations that offer a lot of things for folks to do that are outside, are really hitting the mark with a lot of our planners. So we are enjoying that. In the pipeline, we have meetings that are either prospective or actually secured for the next several years through about 2026. And the estimated economic impact of those meetings is in the $20 million range. This does include Ironman, and we're really looking forward to seeing the economic impact that that event is going to have over the next 2 to 3 years. But our convention sales manager has been working really hard to re-engage planners and get them reinterested in Juneau, and that is paying off right now. At this point, I think we'd like to take a look at the destination marketing piece. This is from our annual report. And I'd like to point out, you can see here, this is from fiscal 21. And I'm really happy to report that with the page views that you see at 277,000, that was for the entire fiscal year through 21. Year to date, as of today, basically, we've got over 362,000 page views. We had 167,000 sessions. To date, we've already got 173. Again, this lends credence to the marketing that we're doing and to the pent-up demand and for the interest in information about Juneau specifically. And I would point out also those demographic numbers that you see on the graph are still holding, and we're still holding very steady with that younger market that is looking for these great, you know, outdoor opportunities, and for small families. As our millennials start to have families of their own, they're looking for these kinds of opportunities as well.
I'd just like to jump in if I may, Madam Mayor. So under the top 5 states, I think that's really important to look at. You see Alaska, California, Washington, Texas, Illinois. we've been targeting those states and cities in those states specifically based on our previous information of frequent visitors and then where we think we could bring people up in the future. So through the pandemic, knowing that we needed to have a responsible approach to bringing people to Juneau, we wanted to think about active outdoor activities where people were spaced out, healthy, continuing to pursue those reasonable activities. We knew that those would rebound much more quickly than maybe, some tight indoor gathering areas, and especially in the winter activities as well. So we see that paying off. Anecdotally, there were some folks that dropped in at the CrossFit gym, Tongass Fitness, and they said, hey, we're up here to heli ski. We're staying for 3 weeks. So that's the kind of cool stuff that we see happening more regularly. And it's as our work through advertising in late 2020 and through 2021, it's paying off into 2022 now. And we're really excited about it.
And at this point, I think
Can we move back one slide as well? I think it's important for us to share this information in the annual report. Those are really the 2 slides of data, that's something fun and tangible that we can look at. The visitor traffic numbers are important. We saw that kind of level out. 2020 was high because it was the end of calendar year 2019. So that FY20 number is higher than FY21. FY21 is really the heart of the pandemic when the fewest amount of people were traveling. So we look to see that number jump up. And as we're compiling all the numbers for the next annual report, it's something that Liz and her team are looking to have completed and distributed in December of this year of 2022. So we can have some thoughtful conversations as we go into spring of 2023 calendar year. Thank you.
And at this point, I think we'd like to move into the budget slides, please. As usual, and I apologize to Ms. Gladzeski, this is a little small, a lot of numbers here. Yeah, so the paper will probably be a whole lot easier for you to deal with. A couple of notes, and I want to thank Mr. Rogers and his team for the work that they do in helping me prepare this budget and getting me the projections for hotel bed tax and for the marine passenger fees as well, so that I've got a fairly clear path to move forward. At a high level, you'll notice that this budget is laid out slightly different from previous years. You'll see 3 special projects columns there to the right. This was done at the council of our accountants, who felt that this would be a better way to capture those special projects, whether it's TBMP, the crossing guards, or any future grant opportunities that we might have. So it will help them in generating the financials and the reports as we move forward, and to make sure that we can easily see where those funds are being spent and accounted for. Very briefly, we did increase the expected revenue for guide ad sales that you'll see in line 4100. We are expecting some increased production costs for the print guide ad, as everybody is expecting. We are starting to attend trade shows again, so we're expecting a little bit of extra income there from partners who may want to, as appropriate, buy into our booth, for example, and they can make sales directly at the trade show. The bottom line that I really want to point out is that over the years, it has been the request of this body that we increase our earned income versus the grant income that we typically get. And I want to point out that our earned income for this budget is nearly 35% of the budget, as opposed to the grant funding. So we're doing our part to meet that commitment. Moving into expenses, just a couple of highlights here. Again, especially in the convention sales and marketing, as I mentioned earlier, we are seeing increased interest in Juneau as a convention destination spot. So we are applying significant resources into primarily trade shows. We have found that that is the most effective way to get to planners, get that face time. One of the first things we always have to do is give them the geography lesson that in fact, Juneau is not an international destination, and they can rest easy about that. Then destination marketing, we are committed to continuing our Eagle Crest promotion, our wintertime promotions to show Juneau off as a great wintertime destination, our art scene, and so on. Working carefully and closely with Eagle Crest to get video production. So we've got fresh video. I think I shared with this group the Snowbirds, or I'm sorry, Snowbrains video that was recently produced. And again, really focusing on video and social media. Know that that's what's going to attract our independent travelers who are less than 50 years old. And they're going to come in with their families. They're going to spend significant amounts of time in market. And that's the crew that we're really aiming at, because they're the ones who want to come in, work remotely maybe for a while, and get that mix of business and leisure, maybe, you know, mix it up a little bit. We're calling it bleisure for now. That term has actually been around for a while. And that term does apply also to meetings and conventions, where you have, you know, much like Ironman, you've got people coming in a couple of days ahead, enjoying a destination, or staying a couple of days later. That is a high level look at the budget. I am prepared and happy to entertain any particular questions that you may have at a more detailed level. It's pretty much cut and dried. Our strategy is to engage more closely in over-the-top advertising. That will be seen on streaming services, for example. That is really effective for the markets that we are working to hit. We are and have continued to cut back on our print advertising because it's not trackable. It looks very, very pretty, but there's very little that we can track on that. So we feel that it's a much better and effective use of our marketing dollars to go as digital as possible. On the occasions that we do print, there has to be a digital component attached to that ad buy. Otherwise, we don't do it. I can't tell you one that we do that does not have a digital component to it.
Thank you. Ms. Glaszewski.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for coming, and I really like this way you've reorganized this. I can't remember exactly what it looked like before, but I've always gotten all confused on the different things. Like, you're the destination marketing people, but then there's all these other things that we also give you money for, and they were all kind of smooshed together. And anyway, so I super love your columns. So if I understand correctly, CS is convention, sales, and
Yes.
then DM is destination marketing, visitor services. That's an obvious one. PS, partnership something.
Yes, partnership services.
Okay. So no, I really appreciate it. And it dovetails into some of the stuff in the, the, whatever we call that contract thing. So to be able to separate the things that are destination marketing, and then then we give you extra money for other things. So anyway, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any further questions, Ms. Hughes Candies?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you too for being here tonight. I have a question that touches on, I think, the convention sales, and I don't know, I'm sure you have thought about this, but I was wondering if you could talk about the impact that the work on Centennial, the improvements will have, whether that's going to be a partial closure or full closure, or how that will impact how we're going out for and how much.
Ms. Bear?
Thank you, Mayor Weldon. To Ms. Hughes Candies, we are going to have some disruption during this first phase, especially of the infrastructure improvements that are happening. And we've already had to displace a couple of meetings that would have happened in the springtime. So we're working to identify groups that have movable feasts, if you will, and get them moved off to a different time and keep them in the rotation for when Centennial is available again. It's my understanding that there may be a slight delay in them getting started with the project this fall. They had planned to start right after Ironman, run it through for approximately 8 months so that we would be up and running again. We work closely with other facilities in town, so we're hoping that if groups appear over the next 10 months and want to come in during that time frame, we're still able to place them perhaps in another facility.
Follow up, Ms. Hughes Candy.
No, thank you.
Anybody else before we move on? All right, please continue.
That's really all I have. Do you have any final comments that you would like to?
No, thank you. That concludes our testimony.
Sure.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would accept the Travel Juno's budget as submitted.
Any objections? Seeing none, thank you for your time today and go enjoy some sun, hopefully still left.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And we like the new budget look. We all agree. All right, with that, Mr. Rogers, we have an updated AFC schedule. Do you need to highlight any of the updates or are we just looking at our calendar?
Madam Mayor, I think we're good to go. I can tell you, we have made a couple of little changes. It'll be reflected in next week's calendar. The Juneau Economic Development Council, we bumped to the 11th, just because Mr. Holst wasn't available. I think we will also hear from AEYC on May 4th. I think that's likely. And I think that same night on the 4th, we will also present a digest of the manager's budget increments that are both included in the budget and separately on the decision list. So we're just tweaking a few things around the May 4th calendar. Next week will be just Airport Hospital Eagle Crest. And then the 4th is obviously a bit of a catch-all meeting for various things that are going on in the budget, including a lot of the Assembly's grantees. And then we'll move on to the 11th where we start trying to make some decisions and get things wrapped up. But otherwise, we are where we are on the schedule. And just a reminder to the public that the Assembly will take public testimony on both the CBJ, the school district budget, the CIP, and the mill rate ordinance on Monday, the 25th, this coming Monday.
Yep, and just so you know, if you looked ahead at that, they are on the 25th, but almost all of them say come back to finance for further review. So
Yeah,
we're not going to plan on moving anything greatly on Monday, the 25th. Ms. Gladysevsky and then Ms. Hughes Candy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just wanted to, this draft, what's it called, MOA? Is it still in the Lands, Housing and Economic Development Committee, or this is the finance meeting, so this is not the time to talk about this, I assume, but I just wondered where that is or who I give comments to or how it's, where it is.
Good question. Ms. Hale, is it still in your committee?
We've looked at it and we have really not taken any action. We really introduced it in the committee so that the Assembly would be aware of it. And I guess I would ask that anybody on the Assembly who's interested in adding or requesting different things, we can bring it back to the Lands, Housing and Economic Development Committee for further discussion. Or if we need to, we can schedule a cow if we want the whole Assembly to look at it. Or we can actually just let it work. What we're trying to do is schedule quarterly updates in LHED with both Travel Juneau following the MOA and Alexander Pierce's office. So sort of quarterly updates on tourism and quarterly updates on Travel Juneau. And what we might do is just give that a try first, and then, the Assembly can observe that and see how that's working. But if anybody has any comments, please let me know, and we can bring it back to LHED and see if we need to bring it to the cow. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hale. Follow up, Ms. Glass.
No, just, I'm good if it stays there. I don't know that it has to come back here, but I'll send you comments or give you some comments.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Hughes Candies.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just double checking / saying out loud for other people if they'd forgotten that if anyone wanted to put forth a CIP amendment, those were in by the 25th, correct?
Thank you, Ms. Hughes Candies, for that reminder. All right, anything further? Anything further from staff? We are adjourned.
All right.